After this realization, recalling this memory, I called up my father. I don't know how long after I had recalled the memory, but I asked him about it, and I said, do you ever remember just losing your temper and maybe you hit me on accident or something? And he said, no, I yelled at you, and I shouldn't have been as mean as I was, but I never hit you. I never crossed that line. And I believe him. I don't remember much of the phone conversation. I was pacing. I was so angry that I was pacing around my room. And it ended in a yelling match. And then I just hung up the phone and didn't talk to him for 2 years. The reason that I didn't talk to him, aside from the memory that I recalled, was that what was also my therapist's just insistence on the fact that he sexually abused me. And under her recommendation, I didn't talk to him. She said, sometimes you just have to cut people out of your life if they're bad for you. So that's what I did. I cut my father out of my life because my therapist told me that he had sexually abused me and probably beaten me as a child. I didn't talk to my father for 2 years because of a false memory that I recalled because of leading questions on the therapist's part, and because I was naive and had bought into the entire thing. For 2 years, my father and I didn't have contact. And that was validated by my therapist, who was supposed to be helping me. She was supposed to be helping me renew and rebuild relationships, and she told me to cut off contact with my father. I don't know how much clearer I can make that. That is my biggest regret of my entire life, was listening to her and putting my entire faith in her ability to help me, that I cut my father out of my life for no reason. And he still doesn't know this. And I intend to tell him when I see him next, because he still doesn't know why I didn't talk to him for 2 years. I can't even imagine the pain that I put him through. I can't even imagine what it's like wondering where your child is and what they're doing and how they're doing and how they're getting along in the most important formative years of their life, in, teenager to adulthood. I can't even imagine that. And that's what I did to him. So, after I called my father, I went to my therapist and I told her what he had said, and that he had denied that he'd ever hit me or abused me in any way as a child. And I don't remember what her reply was to that, but she still harped on the idea. And I also want to add that every time she suggested that my father sexually abused me, I told her that wasn't true. I didn't, what's the word I'm thinking of? I didn't deny that he had maybe hit me, but I always denied that he had sexually abused me. Always. There was never a point in time when I was like, yeah, that probably happened. Like, I had thought about it a lot, but I just could not accept it. And so for some reason, she just kept harping on it. I mean, just kept making she just made these suggestions out of nowhere. I want to reiterate that I never made any mention of even being sexually abused as a child. I never gave her any inkling of the fact that that could have happened. And yet she just latched onto that. That was, it felt like that was the whole point of me going to her, was for her to convince me that my father or someone else had raped or molested me as a child. I don't know where she got that. So while I was also going to individual therapy sessions, my therapist recommended that I go to group sessions as well. And the group sessions consisted of about 7 to 10 other women who were also seeing therapists in the same building. Not necessarily my therapist, but other therapists. A moment of reckoning for me in ways was when I went to a group session, and I remember there was 3 of us girls who were all seeing the same therapist, and we went around the table and we were kind of saying, like, you know, why we were in group in the first place, etc., etc. All 3 of us who were going to the same therapist, all of us said that our therapist had told us that our fathers or possibly some other male relative had sexually abused us as children. And that for me was kind of like, really? You're all going through that too? What are the odds of that? And that was the first time that I remember ever being skeptical, was hearing those other 2 girls say that our therapist was telling them the same thing. And one of the girls even went as far to say that she didn't think that this happened, and she was tired of our therapist harping on this point. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, me too. But then our group leader said something like, you know, oh, we're not here to talk bad about our therapist, we're here to work on whatever. But I mean, that for me was like, like how many people are just happen to be going to the same therapist that have the same problem? I mean, that's a statistical oddity. So I remember bringing it up to her, and I think she said something to me like, well, it was some retarded New Age answer, and it was something like, well, that just tells me that this is my job in this life, is to help people or to help women like you get through this certain kind of thing, and that's why you found me, and that's why I'm here. It was some really airy, vague New Age answer, and I just kind of was like, oh, alright, guess that makes sense. Alright, so fast forward maybe another year. I can never remember how old I was here. I want to say that I was probably I had to be 20. I was probably 20. That she suggested something called theophostic counseling to me. Theophostic counseling is often used in conjunction? I can never remember. It's often used alongside with hypnosis therapy. Theophostic was developed in Ontario as this counseling literally is when you ask God to lighten the darkened areas of your mind. So this is not a metaphor. This is what we did in the session. We would ask a God figure to illuminate the memories that I couldn't remember properly. It was a type of regression therapy.